And it was last July I became president. I took over from Merrick Denton-Thompson, and what a privilege that was. I've been a friend of Merrick's for a number of years. It was actually my first Landscape Institute award in 2008 with Andre, and I sat on a tube railway platform with the award, very excited. And Merrick sat next to me and said, "Oh, you won an award." I just thought he was some bloke chatting to me. I didn't have a clue who he was. And we became very good friends since then, and he introduced me to learning through landscapes and his passion for reconnecting children with nature. And he's been a fantastic past president and a great friend to me. So this was my reception, this was the president's reception at the Garden Museum. I was incredibly keen to have horticulture in that room. So Hilliers provided the trees, Palmstead provided the plants, because I wanted to try and create, you know, Where the Wild Things Are, the book about Max and his bedroom gets overgrown. That's what I wanted to try and create. It was incredibly difficult to do, but we managed to do it, and they donated it. And thank you to those who did come. It was a wonderful evening. So as I say, Andre and I set our practice up after both working for the environmental charity Groundwork for 10 years. And the pure focus of our practice, every single project, is child-centred. From the shores of Loch Lomond to the coast of Southampton, that's exactly what we design. So when I was suggested to stand as president, and I was like, no, it's not going to be for me, no, I'm going to leave it a little bit longer. And I was encouraged by certain members to think about it. I had a look at the corporate strategy that the Institute were working on. I had a look at the direction the industry was going. And I thought, actually, you know, maybe it is a really good time. I think we are failing children in the world. We are failing them by not providing quality spaces. I'm going to show you some of them and some that aren't quality. So I was very keen to come in, and that was kind of my manifesto. And the people, place, nature vision and the values really do work really well when we're looking at trying to reconnect children with nature. The other thing I wanted to do as president was talk to similar organisations, and this is just a few of them that I've been working with and the Institute have been working with. I'm blessed to have a brilliant board, and Helen's here, our Vice President, and we've been really working together to try and raise the profile and awareness of what our members do and share best practice. I was speaking at the Association of Professional Landscapers Awards last night. I started off at Horticultural College at Rees Heath in Cheshire. I learned to dry stone wall and hedge lay, they were the two things. That was my first introduction to landscape. And it was there that I discovered this wonderful world of landscape architecture, and ended up working with Andrew Bannister, past president at Barnsley Council, where I learned to speak Old English in Barnsley. It's a lovely place where it's these out and £2.20. And every day was like a professional practice exam with Andrew, and I was only a year out, but I was quizzed every single morning. And what we see, there is a shortage of young people choosing a career as a landscape professional. So the launch of Choose Landscape, which happened last year, I'm dressed very similar with a slightly different handkerchief in with my medal on. So we launched Choose Landscape. Put your hand up if you've heard of Choose Landscape. No, put your hand up if you've not heard of it. You dare. Hashtag Choose Landscape is a campaign that was launched last July. ChooseLandscape.org. It's not necessarily about what our members at the Institute do, it's about a career in the landscape profession. It's a separate standalone website, and it's really worth looking at. I tell you what, look at this, I'm like Superman. You can get a Choose Landscape t-shirt. They're very, very popular. There you go. Thank you. So, and they're great. So they've got a free Choose Landscape t-shirt. Just grab me later on. And we created a film. I'm not going to show the whole film, but this is the film that talks about a career in landscape. It's on the website, it's on YouTube. Please share it with your colleagues and friends and family. And it doesn't just talk about the design, it talks about management, the science, planning. It's smashing, it's really, really great. Do you want to watch it or should we carry on? Carry on. Carry on. Watch it on the internet. And my first job, and this was a bit strange, so for the son of a market trader from Warrington, who hadn't really travelled, my holidays every year were to North Wales, was as president to go to the IFLA Congress in Singapore. And I was really excited to go. One of the main reasons I was excited was because it was Singapore Garden Festival at the same time, in Gardens by the Bay, by Grant Associates. So I got to see that and talk at that event, but then also be at IFLA. So I was Mr. Biphilia. This is Niall, who is our student member on the board. And he decided to be smart, and Dan decided he was going to be resilient. Actually, Dan wanted to be smart, and there was a little bit of a fight. I was going to be Mr. Plant anyway. And it was great. It was really interesting to hear from landscape architects from all over the world and sharing the same interest. I want to show you this guy's a landscape architect from Sri Lanka, and he designs nursery play gardens for children there. Really humble, small projects that were incredibly valuable, and we were really great to meet him. I was still in contact with him now. If you've never seen Gardens by the Bay, do go and have a look at it on the internet. This is the film made by Grant Associates of their play garden, and I will let you watch this one. So it's very impressive, it's huge, but do you know what I really like about it? It's got horticulture at its heart, it's got playful planting, weaving it together, and that is one of our skills within our profession, how we can make play spaces totally different and the experience of play. So I came back from Singapore and I went to visit my pal Joris, who used to work with me years ago at Groundwork. Went to visit him in the Netherlands, and he said, "Oh, now you're president, I thought I've arranged to take you to look at some playgrounds." So this kind of happens all the time to me now. No matter where I go, people take me to look at public spaces and playgrounds. But what's really interesting, this is his son there. There's his son Thomas. This is his playground at school. That's his school playground. How amazing is that? And it's open to the public. And this approach, we know, we've seen it in Freiburg and in other countries around Europe. There is always a danger that we'll default back to springy chickens and bouncy, because it's easy to maintain and you don't have to leave your office if something breaks. And then they took me to this project. Now this is a tidal playground, so this is on the river, and when the tide comes in, it covers most of the space. You can see here, kids wait outside that gate, when the tide goes out, they come running in and dive and slide down into this pool of water. And the kids love it, the mum and dads hate it. But it's great. And then this year, the IFLA World Congress is in Norway. I've been asked to go and be a keynote speaker there. So I'll be sharing the LI 90 celebrations, looking back to where we've come from over the past 90 years, looking where we are now and looking to the future and how we can make a real difference to government policy and legislation and put children at the centre of what we do. Put your hand up if you went to the LI Awards last year. Did anybody go to the LI Awards? Not many. We're going to get more of you to go this year. So I was really keen. I hosted the awards for 4 years before I was president, and I used to think, oh, they're a bit dry and boring. And I said to Dan when I came in, can we do something to make them a little bit more relevant? Are we inward looking or are we outward looking? We need to make that decision. And last year, I have to say, they were really good. And if you didn't come, this is who you missed out on. And it's Florence Williams who wrote the book, The Nature Fix. I've spoken to Florence for a number of times over the past few years, and I asked her if she would come over and talk about why she believes nature makes us happier, healthier and more creative. and she gave probably one of the most inspirational talks I've ever listened to. And her book, The Nature Fix, I'm going to show you a picture of it in a minute, is well worth getting on the internet and buying. She collates all the research that's going on around the value of nature, particularly for children. And the winners of awards this year, I remember when we won our award in our first LI award for a playground. It was the first playground that I'd won in, I think, ever. And last year this was Singapore Botanical Gardens, won the International Award. Chris Churchman won it for South Gardens, and I gave it the President's Award, which was all child-centred, with horticulture wrapping around it. It was really, really essential. Now, who's heard of the RHS Green Planet Challenge? 1, 2, 3, a few of you. You guys will love this. You've come here today, and if I think you're here why you're here, you'll love this. It's a 10-week project the RHS run. In the autumn, 1 day a week you go into a secondary school and you work with a group of children to design and develop, and it could be a park, space, roof garden, anything, public park, private garden, and they do the whole process from inception to completion, do soil testing, grow plants from seeds to plant in them, do model making, do CGI, photography, and then they have to present and learn to present and communicate, chair meetings over these 10 weeks. It is magical. It's probably one of the most amazing things I've been involved in. And the RHS said they really struggle to get mentors to go into the schools and assessors that walk around like RHS judges with a clipboard with a straight face looking at them. That's how you brief to behave with them, so you intimidate them a little bit. And our membership are the perfect people to go and get involved. And do you know what? And this happens all over the UK. The winners are normally the ones that have been mentored by members of the Landscape Institutes, because they get the big picture. And it's really worth to getting involved in. Oops, if you can. So the books that have inspired me are, this is a great book, it's difficult to get hold of, it's Frost and Klein. They talk about objectives in play, not the experience of play. So climbing, crawling, flying, as opposed to springy, swinging. Slides and roundabouts, they actually talk about the experience of play. And I use that as the core to a lot of the work we do. And then Andre and I have these as our cornerstones. This mentioned this moment ago, The Nature Fix. Fantastic book. I'm hoping a few of you might have heard of Last Child in the Woods. It refers to a thing called nature deficit disorder. And then Richard's latest book is Vitamin N. N is for nature. And he talks about how you can tackle nature deficit disorder. They are must-haves for a landscape architect, I believe, to have on their desk. And Florence talks about these two things, and I've mentioned this a few times. Does everybody know who this Florence is? Florence Nightingale, who in 1890 said post-operative patients recover twice as fast if they have a view of a landscape outside their window. She said they turn to the light like sunflowers turning to the sun. And I think that's a lovely analogy. This is Roger Ulrich, who was an architect, and in 1980 he did, well, basically 1980 he was driving home, the long way getting home, and his wife said, why does it take so long to get home? He said, well, I'll go down that road down there. Why don't you come down the big road? And he looked at me, because I like the trees, I like driving past the trees, coming home, I feel a lot more relaxed when I get home. So then he did a load of research into it. So if you ever go to a doctor's or a dentist's and there's a picture of a tree on the wall, Roger Ulrich is your man, who really sort of published it big time. And it's published in a magazine called The Science. You can still get it online and look at the article he wrote. It's really worth looking at. And I imagine this might be mentioned by one of our speakers today, but I thought I'd beat her to it. So I'm not going to dwell on it. This is Sheffield, and this shows you the catchment, and it was 100 years ago, how the great-grandfather was allowed to go quite a long way up from home, and it's gradually got smaller and smaller. And Helen and I talked together at a number of events many years ago, and this was something that a lot of us would refer to. And do you know what? If we did a new one of these now, it isn't the back garden that the child's playing in. It's not even leaving the lounge. When they're naughty and they're sent to the bedroom, they're going happy days. That's where they want to be sent to. So we've got a real challenge, and we are part of the cure as landscape architects. These publications are, if you've not seen them, I just put them up there, and they will be referred to today, I know they will, so you can get them PDF versions online. The Design for Play is fantastic, it's worth downloading. Particularly this, if you're talking to a client and you're trying to convince them to take a more natural approach to play, it's a really useful thing to have. And the other three that are very useful are the Managing Risk in Play. They're all the things that I always ask, and what a risk-benefit assessment is. And then the one I worked on with Jane Knight from the Eden Project, which was busting the myths around maintenance, you know, sand and all these sort of things, and loose materials. So they're all available if you just PDF them, and are worth grabbing a copy of. So this is why I became a landscape architect, because I kept seeing spaces like this and like this. And this was Wayne Hemingway gave me this image. I mean, even these springy chickens have had enough, and they're all leaving, aren't they? They're jumping in the water. So if I'm ever wondering why we're doing something, I kind of look at this and springy chickens. And I often say, if you get people to describe, let's do it now. Describe a word that relates to play. Let's have a couple of words. Just shout them out. Come on.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Joy.
Fun. That'll do. And that's what people always come up with, these words. Freedom, fun. They never ever shout out competitiveness, danger, risk and bullying. If you don't experience that as a child, you'll have a hell of a shock in your first job, because you're likely to experience more of that than that. And that's what play has to be, a life experience. My nephew, when he was playing in the garden, he was making something, and my brother said, "What are you doing there?" And he said, "What are you playing at?" He said, "I'm not playing, I'm working." And then Roger said, "Oh, you've been an architect?" My brother's an architect. He went, "No, I'm being a landscape architect like Uncle Ad. That's way more fun." And then this is one of our first projects. So you look at that rubbish playground. The project that we delivered here didn't just increase the play value, it increased the habitat value, but it also increased the property value. That is the same space. When Cave did the assessment, they said property value went up by providing that. This project in Peterborough, there's the cafe. The takings in the cafe doubled that summer when that went in. So there's an economic value to putting in these projects, as opposed to just doing the soft, cuddly stuff, which is sometimes really hard for people to understand. So there's a difference in value and valuation of landscape. And I think we need to do more of that, is look at how we can value and look at the valuation measure the impact. So this is one of our projects in Peterborough, totally bespoke, that we designed, great fun. And these are some of the other ones. These are public spaces. These, I believe, should be the norm all across the UK. And it's through engagement is how you foster ownership, how you reduce headaches with maintenance, and how you reduce vandalism, is by engaging people in the process, which is exactly what we do. This is Snowdonia, engaging them in the construction of it. This little lad here, he said, "Where do I plug my iPhone in?" at the start of the day. That was his question. End of the day, he said, "Mum, can I stay and finish building the bridge?" And it's still there. That was last summer. That's a few years ago. It's still there now. So that's in Mulvama, just outside Chester. Beautiful place. And then this is the National Trust. This is a really useful thing for a contractor to think about. Visit the site before you agree to deliver it. It was a 1-in-3 slope in a historic woodland. He had to hire a Sikorsky helicopter to load those huge towers in, because he never visited the site. Cost him a fortune. And then this is Hobble Down Children's Farm. We were given the manuscript for this book called Hobble Down. So Andre and I read the book. And then we had to visit the old children's farm, and we designed the landscape relating to the story. That all went to the artist who created the artwork. So then Hobble Down, the children can read the book and then almost visit the film set, that sort of experience. So it brought in storytelling and narration, and that's a layer that we can add to all these projects we work on. And then we were asked to do a skate park, and I was really resistant to putting a skate park in, just a big blob of concrete, so we did ribbons of concrete. What's really interesting, the top right there, that horrible bund with the acoustic barrier on was put in because the people in the retirement home were complaining, didn't want to see the skate park. I didn't like to say that in a few years' time there'll be a new generation of residents there. They've moved into the retirement home. They've asked for a footpath to be put around and seating so they can watch the children skating. The society has shifted and changed. And then foolishly, very foolishly, I agreed to be locked in a glass box for 3 days and 3 nights in Kensington to raise awareness of autism in children. And this is me, locked in a glass box.
Hi, my name's Adam White. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm here in Tesco's South Kensington, and I'm locked in a glass box for 50 hours. And I'm doing that to raise awareness of autism. I'm working with Cordwell Children and their campaign, which is called Locked In for Autism. And for the next 50 hours, there's just me, this box, my bike, and my model making stuff. Why have I got my model making stuff? We're designing a garden for the charity at Hampton Court Palace Flower Show this summer, so I'm making the model, making the most of my time, locked in the box.
I didn't look that fresh when I came out, believe you me. And the first thing I did, I went to the toilet. But it was a really, really interesting experience. So I talked to lots of people about autism and special needs, and Andre, my business partner, is here later, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then you're never going to get kids to put down their computer phones and iPads, so we've been working with different animators to create digital landscapes, which is our way of bridging that gap. So that's exactly what we did here, so they could walk in, step into the landscape. And augmented reality is something we're working on more and more now. You're never going to fight the digital screen. And that's on YouTube as well. It's quite interesting to watch the whole thing come together. And there's the model I made in the glass box. So this was the project we did at Hampton called Palace Flower Show. Who came to it? Put your hand up if you came to it. Put your hand up if you were involved in building it. There. And Thomas is there. Thomas was one of our stars that came to the planting. And it got gold, Best in Show and People's Choice Award. It got the treble. It rarely ever happens that, because the judges don't always agree with the people, but they did in this case. And that has led to a real shift in tackling a thing called plant blindness, which I can chat to you later on. I can go and talk about that in great depth, which is the human eye looks 0 to 15 degrees. That's all we do. We don't look down, we don't look up. That's why we miss out stunning architecture on high streets, because we're doing this all the time. And we're missing out on the plants. So this garden was part of tackling that. On the train back from Warrington, I'd been to watch my beloved Warrington Rugby League Club, and I was on the train coming back to London. This was just before the show, and I was designing a storyboard about Hampton, the autistic butterfly that floats through the garden. And the chap I was speaking to next to me, well, he wasn't next to me, he was actually on the internet, was Curtis Jobling, who's the creator of Bob the Builder, was involved in Bob the Builder, and he said, turn it into a cartoon. So with Room 60, Matt Parker, landscape architect, we created, the week before the show, this cartoon. The garden was the autistic spectrum. At one end you're hypersensitive, at the other end they might be hyposensitive. So at the hypersensitive end it's got to be really clear and open, not too many changes in textures and colours, clear views, no surprises. But at the other end, where they need the stimulation, that would have little trapdoors, mushroom caves, things to discover and explore, lots of scents and sounds. So the spectrum of the autism was the journey through the garden. And it's now been reimagined. We've designed it for the new International Centre for Child with Disability at Keele University. So 3 times as big, but it's got a permanent home there now. I love that film. It's great fun. Now this is the serious side of it, and some of you may be aware of this, but the Oxford Junior Dictionary has a limited number of words in it. So they always have to chuck a few words out. These are the words that they've chucked out. But, wonder what they've replaced them with. These sort of words: chat room, voicemail, MP3, cut and paste, bullet points. Shocking, isn't it? If you look at BlackBerry, it takes you to the computer phone. It's a serious, serious issue we've got here. We are the last generation that know what we had, and we are the first generation to do anything about it. We have to do it now. It is so serious. And if you think, what happened yesterday, you'll have all seen the climate strike. One of the most moving things I've experienced as president was standing on Surbiton Station, going to the Association of Landscape Awards and seeing 12 kids with banners on their way to Parliament. I get a bit emotional now. It was so, oh man. And I went up and I shook their hands, gave them my business card. And I said, I don't want to be a bit strange. I'm the president of the Landscape Institute that represent landscape professionals and landscape architects. If you're interested, I've got a t-shirt. But they were like, and they were taking a card, and I don't know who was more impressed or in awe, was either them or me, and I was saying, I'm so proud of what you're doing. You have given me hope. You are the voice that needs to go there. My concern is that it comes from a certain demographic. There's only 10% of the people that live in Roehampton Tower have ever been in Richmond Park, and it's on their doorstep. There is a demographic that don't go and experience nature, who aren't on that campaign, and they're the ones that we've got to try and get involved. So I'm going to finish now. I know I've gone on a little bit biased. I love this subject, I do apologise. So the Landscape Institute is 90 years old this year, as we know, founded in 1929, and I was very excited to find out that it was founded at Chelsea Flower Show in 1929. I was really chuffed to find out that I think there are almost 10 landscape architects, our members, LI members, involved in gardens at Chelsea this year. Andy Sturgeon, famous garden designer, employs 18 landscape architects. His whole team's landscape architects. So as president, I've been really curious why we haven't had a stronger relationship with the world of garden design. So I've been working with the Society of Garden Designers, so how we can share best practice and talk to each other more. And at Chelsea, I thought, how are we going to celebrate? Surely we're going to acknowledge our 90th anniversary at Chelsea in some form or other. And I had lots of chats with lots of different people about how we do it. I got hold of this is really exciting and very relevant for today. These are the original letters talking about certain members, Sir Geoffrey Jellicoe, Thomas Mawson and a number of others, meeting at Chelsea in 1929 to talk about establishing a professional body. Its first name was Bagger. The British Association of Garden Architects. We soon changed it to the Institute of Landscape Architects and then the Landscape Institute. So how great is it to be able to go back there? So Andre and I, you might be aware, are creating a garden on Main Avenue here called Back to Nature. It's not a sponsored garden, so there's not a heavy brand being pushed. It's in collaboration with the RHS, it's their garden. And we've taken on an intern to work with us. And I'm going to show you a little bit about that in a minute. And again, these are the books that are going to create the cornerstone of that garden. So the Duchess of Cambridge has been working with Andre and I for the past 8 months now. We go about once a fortnight, we've got a WhatsApp group, we chat regularly designing the project. She sketches, she doodles, she studied the history of art at St Andrews, she's the patron of a number of different mental health charities, and she's been a real valuable asset to developing this garden, let alone the attention she's drawn to the garden regarding press and raising awareness. And this is the process we've gone through, developing the design, lots of traditional stuff. And you might have seen this in the papers, it was in lots of papers. And I said to the press office at the RHS, can you refer to us as landscape architects? Not because I haven't got a problem, I love garden design, but we don't design, we'd be misrepresenting what we do. And I remember, you'll all remember that horrible, it's horrible when Joe Yates died, the landscape architect, and she died, and it was in the papers, it said landscape architect. I thought we needed a positive story in the big papers with the word landscape architect in it. And it was global. I could not get over. We were phoned up by ABC News in Sydney, it was NBC News in America, it was all over Canada, and it's all because the Duchess of Cambridge had got involved. And it's a kind of weighing the two things up, but it's raising awareness of this garden and the message behind this garden. It even appeared in Hello magazine. Now I never thought I would ever, well, strictly speaking, I'm not in it, because they photoshopped me out. What's that about? Yeah, get rid of him. So, and Andre's delighted to have the back of her head in it. She's changed her hair now, it doesn't even look like that now. So, but it is getting a lot of attention, and it is for an amazing message with children at its core, which Chelsea isn't famous for. And I'm just going to finish on this, you might have seen this yesterday, so if you're on social media, do follow those tags, and do have a look at what Greta's done. It is quite amazing, the movement. So I'm sorry, I don't know how long I've gone on for, but I just wanted to share this captive audience with this amazing journey we're all on. And I'm now going to hand, I think Carly's our first speaker, so I'm going to hand over to her. Thank you very much.